Number 10. Sapphire Styx. Sapphire Styx was a mutant villain powerful enough to turn Wolverine unconscious with her life-threatening powers. Her abilities allow her to steal the energy and life force of those she makes physical contact with, typically through kissing them. Kind of like Rogue, but without the power and memory absorption, and if she leaned into the harmful elements of her powers a little more. Sapphire did just that, and it is implied that she has been able to stay healthy and young for hundreds of years using her mutant ability. I love when we have like mutant vampirism. I love those powers. It's also believed she is powerful enough that she could use her mutant ability to kill her victims depending on her target's power level and resistance, of course. In the end, she was defeated and killed by Psylocke, who used her powers to avenge all the souls that Sapphire had ever drained, shattering her. Psylocke then used Sapphire's soul energy to rebuild her own body, becoming Betsy once more. Number 9. Knockout. Knockout has only made a few appearances in the comics since her first appearance in the 90s, but she is still a pretty deadly female villain and is super badass. She has worked within both the villainous supergroup of the Femizons and the Femme Fatales. More recently, she was seen once again fighting alongside the Femme Fatales. Knockout is a mutant whose powers are enhanced strength, endurance, and durability. She's a skilled enough fighter that she was able to make quick work of mutant Rogue when she faced her briefly in Hunt for Wolverine, Mystery in Madripoor. Number 8. Lady Mastermind. We could talk about both for this point, but I've decided to focus on Reagan Wingard, who popped up in Dawn of X, as opposed to Martinique, who is also the daughter of Jason Wingard, aka Mastermind. Mastermind OG. Even when it seems like Reagan has not been strong enough when it comes to her mutant powers to achieve the desired effect on her victims, she has proven skilled and resourceful enough to find a way to push through any mental blocks or willpower that those she targets possess. Her mutant powers allow her to create realistic illusions that in fact can even trick your body into responding to them as if they were real, meaning that her illusions can actually kill you. Yikes. Unlike her father, her powers also do not require her full and devout concentration to work. Lady Mastermind's illusions will persevere even if she goes unconscious, which is pretty powerful. She's basically like way more powerful than her dad. And before we move on to our next spot, time for the most YouTube of moments where I ask you to kindly click that like. Pretty please? Number 7. Yelena Belova. Yelena Belova has always been the rival to Black Widow since way back when she was training in the Red Room Academy. She always aimed to be the best of the best and was driven crazy by her obsession to become the best operative out there. Belova at one point had her face swapped with Natasha's against her will, so that Nat could prove a point to her, basically that being a spy wasn't that great, to help convince her to come over to the good side of things, sort of. Belova will likely play a much less villainous role in the MCU, but in comics she has often been known as an antagonist to Black Widow. And she also has been Black Widow before. Although she is usually manipulated into being a villain, and the most evil thing about her is generally her competitiveness with Natasha, which we've already seen will be addressed in the Black Widow film, just based on the trailer. Belova has also acted as an ally to Natasha on occasion as well, despite the fact that she has lots of reasons to hate her. So yeah, it depends on what you're reading. She can be a villain, she can sort of be not really a hero, but an ally. She can be a hero in her own way. Number 6. Lady Bullseye. Maki Matsumoto is known for being one of the fastest fighters around. She is both believed to be faster than the Kingpin and Bullseye, who inspired her to become a killer under the same mantle, and Bullseye, who in fact inspired her to become a killer under that same mantle. She was saved by Bullseye when she was a little girl, who the Yakuza intended to sell for their own means. Bullseye, however, was tasked with wiping out those who would be responsible for her and many other victims' sale, and killed them before they could do so. Lady Bullseye is a skilled fighter, trained in wielding many different types of weapons, and proficient in many different kinds of martial arts. Oh, she also is apparently a lawyer, or at least understands law well enough to pose as one. She's both worked with Kingpin and successfully defeated him in combat, which I think is pretty impressive. Kingpin is not an easy person to defeat in a fight. Number 5. Titania. Titania is Mary McFerrin, a girl who was known for her small stature and often mocked for it when she was young, and aspired to become something greater than what she felt she was born into. After being offered powers by supervillain Dr. Doom, she was transformed into the powerhouse known as Titania. Titania has been shown to be skilled and strong enough to defeat a whole wheelhouse of powerful superheroes, including Luke Cage and Iron Fist, as well as The Thing and Mr. Fantastic. She's also kicked the butt of Johnny Storm, the Human Torch, is faster than a speeding bullet and Mjolnir itself, and can take a direct hit from the mythical hammer and be left completely unfazed by it. Now, some of this went on while her powers were boosted admittedly, but either way, Titania is not a villain you'd want to face in a fistfight. I would not want to face her in a fistfight because my face would get punched into the next, into the nega zone. I'd be gone. You'd have no face left. Yikes. Number 4. Madam Hydra. Madam Hydra has close ties to quite a few superheroes and other famous villains, and we also for a time have known her under the codename Viper, which is also very important indeed given her obsession with snake venom in addition to other toxins and poisons. Madam Hydra's legal name is Ophelia Sarkinson, and like her codename implies, she is often known for being a ruler of Hydra and as a member of their High Council. She has close ties to Jessica Drew's Spider-Woman, who she has fought against and also sought to re-recruit, Wolverine, whom she was married to, and obviously Captain America, because Hydra. So yeah. As I said, Madam Hydra is fond of poisons, toxins, and venoms, and as such generally employs them for use as weapons through projectiles and even her lipstick. She also possesses near toxin immunity, which she obtained through frequent and carefully measured exposure. I wish that was true. What if you had actually, isn't that kind of how allergies work? Can't you be exposed to them in small amounts and then you can overcome your allergy? I don't know if that's true, but that might be true. It might be science. Don't try that if you're allergic to something and you die. Don't do it though, because I think then it doesn't work. Number 3. Moonstone. Like many of the deadliest and most villainous women in Marvel, Moonstone is really just a woman looking to put herself before others. She's always out to get what she needs first, which generally makes her a villain. But there have been times when Karla Sofin has both posed as a hero and also truly tried to be a hero. She was part of Baron Zemo's Thunderbolts, built out of his Masters of Evil team, and rebranded in disguise as superheroes, following the apparent destruction of most of Earth's heroes by Onslaught. Following this, the Thunderbolts did attempt to truly become heroes under the leadership of Hawkeye, whom Karla started a relationship with. Moonstone was also the Miss Marvel equivalent to Norman Osborn's Dark Avengers team, acting far more villainously once more. She can manipulate gravity, making her super powerful and allowing her to basically augment much of her own abilities, including durability, strength, and speed. She can even turn herself invisible using her gravity manipulation, and she can teleport. Number 2. Mystique. One of the deadliest women out there when it comes to female villains has got to be my girl, Mystique. The best thing about Mystique too is she's really a relatable villain because a lot of times she's kind of just looking out for number 1, herself. Wow, did I just say she's relatable and then I talked about how selfish she was? I think people are all selfish to an extent, which is true. I think we are all selfish at times. And sometimes Mystique also just behaves evilly to look out for those she legitimately cares for, like her now dead wife Destiny and their adopted daughter Rogue, whether or not Rogue actually wants her help or protection. And so that is definitely relatable, I think. Looking out for other people, even sometimes when people are like, I don't want your help, and you're like, well, I'm still gonna help you because I love you. Her shape-shifting powers means that she can pose as pretty much anyone, and her skills in disguise and impersonation help to smooth over these appearances, allowing her to even move and act like those whom she adopts the identity of. Not only that, but Mystique is a skillful fighter and manipulator, so she's not someone you want to get on the bad side of. Trust me, other people have, and they have been backstabbed so many times, their back is basically like a knife block at this point. Yikes. Number 1. Hela. Hela is one of the most deadly villains when she wants to be. Like Mystique, Hela isn't always a villain. She's not inherently evil, but is capable of great evil if it is something that is needed for her to get what she needs or wants. As the ruler of Hell, she is immensely powerful when it comes to her magic and her physical strength as well. She's also a necromancer, being ruler of Hell, though she isn't someone who enjoys torturing the souls over which she rules or manipulating them into doing her bidding, unless, once again, it serves some greater purpose for her. Still, Hela is not someone you want to get on the bad side of, and more recently as we've seen her ally herself with Thanos, we've seen an even more malevolent side of her. Number 10. Black Cat. Black Cat is only rounding out the bottom of this list because she is so ever-changing when it comes to her alignment and so much more complicated of a character to be considered either a hero or a villain, really. But she definitely is a very capable and dangerous criminal, when she needs to be, or when she wants to be, which is why she still makes the cut. When it comes to going up against Black Cat, odds are good you probably don't want to. In fact, she might not even be someone you want as an ally, considering that Black Cat could in fact be ready to double cross you at a moment's notice. Felicia Hardy is definitely one of the most dangerous thieves around when it comes to Marvel Comics, making her one of the publisher's most deadly, sometimes villain. Number 9. Bloodlust. Bloodlust was one of the villainesses that ended up joining the Femme Fatales. The Femme Fatales were an all-female supervillain group who were for a time working alongside Superior's Femizons in a plot to take over the world. She would end up being a mutant who lost her powers on M-Day, but when she did have them, they were very similar to Wolverine and X-23's. Bloodlust, whose real name is Beata Dubiel, actually predates X-23 in terms of her first appearance. Pretty cool facts. She first appeared in the comics in Marvel Comics Presents in 1990. After she lost her powers though, she became a skilled assassin who fought with small, stiletto-like blades. Powered, Bloodlust was believed to be as strong and deadly as Wolverine. Depowered, she was still a skilled enough fighter to give Domino a run for her money. Before we move on to our next number, just a quick reminder to give this video a thumbs up if you are enjoying it. It really does help us out. Number 8. Emma Frost. Emma Frost is only ranking solo on the list because she is a reformed villain now in the comics, but that doesn't mean that she is any less deadly now that she is a hero. As a villain, she managed to swap bodies with Storm and infiltrate the X-Men. As a mutant and a person, Emma is so skilled and so badass that she even manages to use other mutant skills better than even they can, like when she swapped bodies with Iceman and showed him up. Beyond that though, even just as a woman, not even considering her especially strong diamond form or masterful telepathic powers, Emma is pretty remarkable and dangerous. She's just a powerhouse who knows how to bargain when it comes to business dealings and relishes the power she wields as the White Queen of the Hellfire Trading Company, and formerly the Hellfire Club, because that's what the trading company used to be. But anyways, now the Hellfire Club is a bunch of kids that are villains, so modern time comics. Number 7. Mind Blast. We are going back to the Femme Fatales for a little bit here. This member of the team was actually first introduced in the 90s in Amazing Spider-Man issue 340. She is not only a mutant but also a cyborg. Her mutant powers grant telekinetic abilities which she can use to fly and manipulate other objects. In addition, she also possesses the power of telepathy via her cybernetic enhancements, which grant her telepathic shielding and allow her to create quite convincing psychic illusions. Convincing enough to lure some of the X-Men, including Psylocke, into a trap. Which in my mind, if you're tricking Psylocke with like telepathic illusions, you're pretty good. Number 6. Elektra. Elektra is one of the most skilled and dangerous women out there, both when she's acting as a villain and when she's acting even as a hero. Like Emma, she also ranks a little bit lower due to the fact that she is currently attempting to prove she can be good and operating under the codename Daredevil. So not super villainous right now. However, part of the appeal with Elektra is while an ally to Daredevil, she has never been completely good and in general is considered as more being a villain than a hero. Initially, she didn't possess any powers but was an incredibly skilled fighter, assassin, and ninja. Since being resurrected by the Hand, however, she does have some powers. She can low-key possess other people's minds, using this to track down her targets. It's also been revealed that she has other mental and telepathic abilities and fighting techniques. Gotta love those mental fighting techniques. Mental screams. Ah! This is why I should never get any kind of sonic scream, because I would just sound ridiculous. Not my mutant power. Okay. Number 5. Kandra. Kandra is part of the Externals and as such has spent a good amount of her comic book history being a pretty powerful villain. The Externals are immortals who can't be killed, except on the rare occasion when they can. Because comics. And because I mean, hey, every character has to have a weakness. For Externals, they can be killed by having another external kill them if their hearts are consumed by said foe. Kandra is an immensely powerful telekinetic who also possesses some telepathic abilities, but she is also just deadly because of how ruthless she is and because of all of her connections, because she's so old. She not only is powerful in her own right, but also holds sway over other powerful mutants and allies. By By the way, externals are different from eternals, in case you were wondering, though both are godlike but in different ways. And both are from Marvel, which is confusing. But yeah, externals, eternals. Number 4. Veranki. Queen Veranki is the main antagonist of the Secret Invasion storyline. Disguised as Spider-Woman, she, along with many of her undercover Skrulls, managed to infiltrate and, in secret, invade Earth. Hence the name of the story, Secret Invasion. Veranki is less about killing and more about conquering, but usually when it comes to conquering a planet, you're probably gonna have to break a few eggs. And when I say break a few eggs, I mean kill a few humans. As a Skrull, Veranki is capable of shapeshifting. She also can employ a special Skrull ritual in order to grant herself the memories and powers of those she is impersonating. And of course, as a queen, she also has armies at her beck and call. Or she did, until she was ultimately defeated and killed by one of the most evil characters in Marvel Comics and one of the most deadliest male villains, Norman Osborn. Also, where's my deadly male villain list? Number 3. Madeline Pryor. Also known as the Goblin Queen. Madeline Pryor was a pilot in Alaska who won Scott Summers' heart in part because, well, she looked exactly like his thought dead ex-teammate and lover, Jean Grey. Nothing gets someone going like being like, wait, you look like someone that just died that I was in love with. Oh, I'm so into this. I'd be like, I'm so traumatized by you, I definitely don't want to be around you. But hey, to each their own. It was later revealed to comic readers and Maddie herself after she married Scott and had a child with him that she was in fact Jean's clone, created using a piece of the Phoenix Force by Mr. Sinister, as part of a plot to create the perfect mutant, her son, baby Christopher, who'd grow up to become Nathan Summers, aka Cable. Mr. Sinister intended to steal the baby for himself and then destroy Maddie, having no further need for her. That's so rude. When she discovered she was Jean's clone and that Sinister was her creator, she ended up suffering from a mental break that in essence turned her evil. She made a pact with a demon and planned on sacrificing her son and other children in order to gain power, but ended up being stopped by the X-Factor and the X-Men teams. She has been thought dead, and actually dead, a few times in the comics, and made a recent return in 2020's Hellion series. And then we all realized, oh yeah, we totally forgot that Madeline Pryor is still alive and has been for a while. I'm sorry. I feel bad for her. She returned as a villain once more, and after her return was shortly thereafter defeated and is now presumed dead. But only time will tell if that remains true. Number 2. Harpy. And more specifically, Red Harpy, as you may have noticed from our thumbnail for this video. Harpy is basically the evil version of Betty Ross, Bruce Banner's love interest and ex-wife. Harpy came into being when MODOK used gamma radiation to transform her into a winged monster, who would make a pretty fitting opponent for the Hulk. Her exposure to gamma radiation not only made her the amazingly strong green monster known as the Harpy, but also drove Betty insane, making it easy for MODOK to manipulate her and use her to do his bidding. After becoming Red She-Hulk, we'd later also see an even more horrific version of Harpy when Betty returned as the immortal Red Harpy. Harpy in general is considered to be one of the strongest villains around and is strong enough to take on the Hulk face to face in a fight. One-on-one. She can also heal, fly, and possesses razor-sharp claws and talons. Number 1. Saturnine. That's Magistrix Opal Luna Saturnine to you. Also known as the White Witch, Saturnine is likely one of the most deadly villains on this list, considering just how powerful she is, and just how unpredictable she is. Of course, you still have a chance of getting past her if she happens to be in a particularly good mood. The thing about Saturnine is that she isn't outright evil. She's more of an all-powerful character who becomes a powerful villain simply because she wants to have fun, or because she wants something that others refuse to grant her. She can be both a powerful ally and a powerful enemy, but you definitely do not want her as an enemy. Trust me. Saturnine is a deadly magic user who comes armed with the magic of Otherworld, and as the Omniversal Guardian and Magistrix is basically god level when it comes to the mischief that she is capable of.
Number 10. Amanda Waller. She doesn't even have superpowers, but she is a power all on her own. Nicknamed the Wall, she is a government official who will do anything in the name of national security. I'm talking breaking the rules, killing people, even killing innocent people. She is the commander of Task Force X, aka Suicide Squad, a supervillain team that performs special operations under her command. She has a brilliant tactical mind and is ruthless and disciplined. bending supervillains to her will to get her work done, but she's not afraid to get her hands dirty. She once even uncovered Batman's secret identity. She might not be the deadliest DC villain by a pretty wide margin, but there are a whole host of DC villains that would say she's plenty deadly. It's this ability to get superpowered villains to do her dirty work that earns her this spot on our list. Number 9, Catwoman. Coming straight from the heart of Gotham City, Selina Kyle has had a varied origin, but she always ends up becoming Catwoman. In more recent years, she shows up more as a helper to Batman than as an enemy, but she is one of Batman's original villains, and for good reason. She is in peak physical condition and a nimble acrobat as well as master thief, sometimes even using literal cats to help her in her schemes. She might not have super strength or energy manipulation, but she is still a deadly foe, a skilled martial artist, stealth expert, and has considerable skill with weapons, including firearms and swords. Number 8, Cheetah. A much more intimidating cat, Cheetah has had a bit of a legacy, and there are a few different versions of the character. The most recent iteration of Cheetah is Barbara Minerva, who just recently appeared in DC's Wonder Woman 1984. A skilled archaeologist and linguist, she has a keen interest in the lost culture of the Amazons, and she actually helped Wonder Woman learn English when she first came to the United States. Dr. Minerva has made a pact with a god, transforming her into the cheetah with superhuman speed and all the deadly attributes of a feline. She battles with the inner turmoil of resisting her animalistic rage and predatory fury, and was once friends with Wonder Woman, at least in her human form. She was once busted out of jail by the crime syndicate and recruited onto their team. After a while, she led her own team known as the Menagerie, who terrorized New York from their hideout in Central Park. Number 7, Punchline. Also called Alexis Kay, she is the Joker's new right-hand woman, as Harley has a lot going on right now and the two aren't really on speaking terms. She was a student at Snyder College and encountered the Joker while on a field trip to a TV studio. Joker hijacked the studio and Alexis was forced at gunpoint to act as the newsreader, delivering Joker's message to the citizens of Gotham. After this encounter, she became obsessed, starting a podcast about the Joker and poisoning the people around her to try and get his attention. She eventually kills her college dean, proving herself to the Joker, who taught her how to create a modified form of his Joker venom. Link in the script there. She goes on to help Joker in his war against Batman, eventually having an epic showdown against Harley Quinn and Batman. She wields a couple of daggers and holds her own well against Catwoman and Harley. Number 6, Silver Banshee. First appearing in Action Comics number 595, Silver Banshee is a villain with sonic powers who frequently goes up against Superman. She was once insanely powerful, but has sort of been dumbed down a bit over the years. It's just how it goes with these supervillains sometimes. But in her youth, she was dragged into the netherworld during a supernatural conflict as family stuff, and granted superpowers by a creature called the Crone. She is initially controlled by the powers like a curse, but later overcomes it with the help of Supergirl. They become fast friends and get to know each other pretty well. The two later hang out in a bar together, and it's totally lit. They're having a great time until her dad, Black Banshee, shows up. Luckily, the two of them are able to defeat Black Banshee together. Silver Banshee is known for her ability to learn language instantly, and more importantly, this crazy power to just make people die by saying their name. It's sort of like the Black Canary's canary cry, except the Banshee version, and it instantly kills you. Number 5, Blackfire. Blackfire is the older sister of Starfire from the Teen Titans. She often appears as an adversary of the Titans and is extremely powerful, outmatching the already astounding Starfire in battle. She can absorb ultraviolet radiation and transform it into deadly bolts she calls Black Bolts, and can even change radiation into energy, giving her superhuman strength and endurance. She is especially powerful, capable of interstellar travel and flight in space. It's kind of the same thing. She appears in Red Hood and the Outlaws number 11, where she fights alongside her sister and takes down the Blight after they capture Roy Harper. It's an epic team up and a great reunion for the two sisters. Number 4, Mary, Queen of Blood. Mary Seward is the Queen of Blood, appearing in House of Mystery number 290 in 1981. She once had a lover named Andrew Bennett, a decorated nobleman who was bitten and turned into a vampire. Mary begged Andrew to bite her as well, hoping that the two could spend eternity together. However, Andrew resists the vampiric bloodlust while Mary embraces it and becomes a ruthless killer. She forms a cult called the Blood Red Moon, and Andrew hunts her across the centuries trying to stop her. She once turned an entire temple of monks into vampires, but they rather impressively resist the bloodlust through mindfulness and meditation. She has a crazy host of powerful abilities, including psychokinesis, transformation, regeneration, superhuman strength, not to mention immortality. As long as she has a steady supply of blood, she is extremely powerful, and I'm sure it's easy for her to get more. Number 3, Killer Frost. Killer Frost is just a classic deadly female villain, an icy-hearted femme fatale who will literally suck the life out of you in a heartless attack. There have been multiple iterations of Frost, always iconic and always super powerful, having once even sold her soul to become more powerful. She has been kidnapped and forced to work on the Suicide Squad, and once even worked alongside Batman. Caitlin Snow is the newest Frost, a scientist who is tricked by Hive and made to die in a staged accident, but she instead survives and gains her ice-based powers. She is not made of ice, but instead generates organic ice-like cells that make up her entire genetic makeup. She is a heat vampire, absorbing the body heat of others to kill them. Number 2, Enchantress. Also known as June Moon, Enchantress gained her powers from an immensely powerful being and almost immediately winds up battling against Supergirl. She later joins the Suicide Squad as Amanda Waller agrees to help her control her evil Enchantress side. She can manipulate energy, heal, and even teleport. She once took on Wonder Woman, Cyborg, and Superman all at once, and has defeated other villains as well. Her powers have gotten kind of erratic and unpredictable since June Moon and Enchantress became separated from one another, but she has still demonstrated some impressive raw power in her villainous career. She is capable of flight, necromancy, and possession, elemental control, and even resurrection, but only if the corpse is fresh. If it's not though, she can always use the necromancy. Number 1, Evil Supergirl. Lex Luthor had an evil scheme that basically caused all of this. He created a black kryptonite energy ray, which he used on Supergirl, hoping to corrupt her. Instead though, the ray generated a second dark version of Supergirl. This dark version had similar memories and experiences, but believed that she was sent to Earth to kill Superman. And as you can imagine, she's crazy powerful. She goes on a rampage using her Kryptonian powers, causing tons of damage, and even taking down Black Canary and the Flash before finally facing off in an epic battle with Superman and Wonder Woman. Evil Supergirl is likely one of the most powerful villains ever, and it's actually Wonder Woman that brings her down in the end, catching both versions of Supergirl in her lasso and merging them together back into one.
Number 10, Hawkgirl. Hawkgirl is a hero who is known for belonging to part of the elite superhero team, the Justice League. She is actually the reincarnation of Shra, who was punished for helping to save Qatar the Deathbringer, despite his misdeeds. As punishment, Shra could never permanently die, and instead would be reincarnated into a new life, keeping with her all the memories of her previous lives, which gives her a lot of experience to use and means that she is extremely wise when it comes to tactics, fighting, and even approaches to science and advancement. Qatar the Deathbringer was also cursed to be reincarnated and is known as Hawkgirl's partner, Hawkman, in his current incarnation. Hawkgirl also has wings, can fly, and I believe currently her wings are also infused with nth metal still? I think that's still a thing. Aside from that, Kendra Saunders is also super strong, durable, and has a reasonably potent healing factor. Always helpful to heal. Number 9, Dr. Light. No, not that Dr. Light, don't worry. We're talking about the second Dr. Light, the heroic Dr. Light, Kimio Hoshi. In the New Earth continuity, Dr. Light was not at all related to Arthur Light, the original Dr. Light, known for being a major villain. Instead, she was actually a hero who happened to get blasted with energy from the Vega Star when Monitor reached out to create a champion after sensing the anti-Monitor and kind of getting spooked by his destructive vibes. Monitor was like, I don't think so, gonna just shoot some star energy out and hopefully that hits someone who is gonna be a cool hero. Fingers crossed. Dr. Light is a scientist and astronomer turned into a hero who can tap into energy from the Vega star, giving her almost unlimited power. She can use this energy to create illusions and energy constructs, blast her enemies, fly, and phase. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving this list and you want to show your love for us on another place, in another platform, head on over to Facebook, click that follow, click that like. It really does help us out here at the channel, so thank you. Number 8. Poison Ivy. Poison Ivy is one of the most powerful women around when it comes to villains in the DC universe. While she doesn't often act as a global threat, we learned in the Everyone Loves Ivy arc that if she wanted to, she could do that. Ivy in more recent years has flirted with a path of redemption, sometimes acting as a more morally conscious villain, and other times even acting as a hero or an anti-hero. In fact, even when she took over the world, she kind of had a pretty fair reason for why she should actually rule it. After all, things go a lot more smoothly and are a lot better overall for everyone, the planet especially included, when she is in charge. However, this also means that people don't really get to have free will, so that's not so great. Obviously. Which is why people were like, look, Ivy, you can't just control the world. People gotta mess it up with their free will. Free will, you know? Number 7. Hera. Hera isn't just a woman, she's also a goddess, one of the most powerful of the female goddesses of the Greek pantheon. Hera in Wonder Woman Historia the Amazons, which tells the tale of how the Amazons came to be, is seen as the goddess who kind of like rules over all of the others. Like, not explicitly, but she definitely influences them a lot. She's the one that calls the shots. She is the one who typically commands them, and although she did not choose to aid them in creating the Amazons, she sneakily sent them some aid in her own way in the form of their to-be queen, the human woman Hippolyta, who would actually rise to become an Amazon. She is Zeus's wife, but despite her position as his partner, she's one of the few women in Greek mythology who would dare to trick him, spurn him, or even sometimes fight against him. Also, if you haven't read Wonder Woman Historia the Amazons, you should go read it. It's really pretty, it's really great. I need to get like a tattoo somewhere from issue 1, I feel like, that is from that book because it's just so stunning. Number 6. Supergirl. Hera might be a goddess, and Supergirl, you know, doesn't have that title, but she kind of may as well have it. Supergirl is a Kryptonian known often for being Superman's cousin. In fact, originally Kara Zor-El was his older cousin who was sent after him in order to protect him. However, she kind of got stuck in like the Earth's orbit and her arrival on Earth was delayed. Pre her arrival, during the time when she was still in stasis, barely aging, Superman arrived on Earth and basically grew up. By the time that Kara Zor-El did land, Kal-El had aged to be older than her. So she's older in terms of like her technical like birth date, if she had a Kryptonian like birth certificate or license, but younger in terms of her experience living and, you know, her physical appearance. I didn't talk about her powers at all, but you guys all know who Supergirl is. She is super strong. You know, Superman, he's really strong. Supergirl, also really strong. I more wanted to just talk about how she's younger, I guess, but also older. It's a weird fun thing. Number 5. Hecate. One of the most powerful women in the DC universe is Hecate, the goddess of witchcraft. While she belongs to the Greek pantheon, in truth, Hecate is a goddess who is much more powerful and older than any group of gods around. We actually learned during the Witching Hour event that she, in fact, was asked to join the Greek pantheon and actually chose to accept that offer. She represents the power of magic, and in many ways the magic of the world and possibly of the universe is tied to her. Although she can be killed, it takes a lot of power to defeat Hecate, and even after her seeming demise, as the other kind pretty much like tore her apart, her power lived on in Circe, who had plotted for a way to basically take all of Hecate's power for herself, as she was one of the 5 witch-marked. And after being the only one remaining, she basically became the sole possessor of Hecate's power. Number 4. Naomi. Naomi is probably one of the most powerful of the newer heroes that we've seen in the DC universe. Her powers are on the level of heavy hitters such as Superman. In fact, while transformed into her superhero mode, Naomi's power set is pretty similar, except for one very important and unique element of her powers. Unlike Superman, whose weakness is magic, Naomi actually bolsters and boosts magic around her. Her powers allow her to generate energy, which she can use in a few different ways. In combat, using it to blast opponents, or to give her a physical boost. Alternatively, she can use that same energy to boost magic and magical beings around her, which is pretty neat. However, as Naomi is still young, despite her potential, she still has some learning to do when it comes to her power set and how to to best utilize and control it, which is the only reason why she ranks so low. I feel like Naomi with time could be somewhere right near the top of this list. She's pretty nuts. I love it. Number 3. Circe. While Hecate and Hera are both goddesses, at one point Circe is even more powerful than both of them after she takes within herself all of Hecate's power, which allows her to tap into the source of magic. Even without being able to tap into the source of magic though, Circe is known for being a fearsome and powerful witch who can easily defeat many of those who would stand against her. Circe can shapeshift, teleport, possess others, manipulate time, and is considered to be immortal. Despite her youthful appearance, Circe is actually more than 1,000 years old. Number 2. Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman, despite having to face Circe and sometimes seemingly being slightly bested by her, always ends up coming out on top in the end. At least in main continuity. And at least usually. And so for that reason, I think it makes sense that she takes one of our top spots, especially above one of her most iconic and most powerful foes. Wonder Woman in recent years has also ascended to a temporary cosmic level of godhood, on top of already being a demi-goddess as the daughter of Zeus and Hippolyta in prime continuity anyways. As a result of her origin, Wonder Woman has divine superhuman abilities, making her super fast, strong, dexterous, and durable, on top of all the other awesome stuff that she can do, like lead an army as a master tactician and communicate with animals. Wonder Woman, she can do it all. What can't she do? Number 1. Raven. Raven is one of the most powerful women in the DC universe. In fact, she is so powerful that she actually has to rein in her power in order to keep the rest of the world safe. That is why she often seems so detached. It's because her powers directly link up to her emotional responses. To get too swept up in emotion would mean a loss of control over her powers, which could potentially result in a darker side taking hold of her. We've seen what happens when this takes place, and it gives us one of Raven's most powerful forms. Although when she manages to evolve from darkness back to light, she can actually become even more powerful. As we see in the New Earth continuity, after she turns evil, attacks Starfire and Nightwing's wedding, and then later on is killed, but in dying actually becomes free of her evil demonic father Trigon's influence. With him defeated, she is free to rise again, purified of his corruption. And she gets a cool white cape, so that's bonus, you know? Who doesn't want a cool white cape? I love capes. I should be wearing a cape right now. Number 10. Enchantress. Enchantress is considered to be one of the greatest magic users in Asgard. She is a villainous woman who often plots against Thor Odinson, although sometimes plots against him because she maybe has a huge crush on him. In fact, there are multiple realities where Amora and Thor actually end up together, even having children in some realities, and in many of these alternate worlds, the villain and hero actually make a pretty good pairing. Enchantress is not just a gifted and skilled magic user who can use her powers to do all sorts of things, but she is also a fairly formidable physical opponent as well, as she is also of Asgard. Number 9. Scarlet Witch. Scarlet Witch is obviously one of my all-time favorite heroes and characters in the Marvel Universe. I love Wanda. Wanda Maximoff in the comics was originally a villain belonging to the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, but would later end up joining the Avengers. And she was never really too happy about being part of the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. Both her and her brother Quicksilver mainly seemed to stay because they felt they owed Magneto, the master of magnetism and leader of the group, their lives. He had seemingly saved them both, and so they were basically indebted to him. Eventually, they would learn that Magneto was also their father, but then, later on, Wanda would learn that although Quicksilver was indeed her brother, Magneto was actually not their father at all. It had apparently all been a trick of the High Evolutionary's doing. Still, many of Wanda's most astounding feats are tied to this fake family, with her even at one point warping reality and giving her father the perfect family life, allowing him to become the ruler of a mutant civilization during House of M. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving this list and you want more lists about all the powerful ladies over at Marvel Comics, be sure to head on over to Facebook and click that like and click that follow. We're also gonna have lots of cool bonus content coming your way soon, and I'm very excited about it. Number 8. Hela. Hela is, as she sounds, the ruler of Hell. Asgardian Hell anyways. She's implied to be the daughter of Loki in the comics, though in the MCU her origins were changed to make her the firstborn secret daughter of Odin, who was imprisoned for being such a big lover of death and war after her dad decided it was basically time to make peace with the other realms instead. It's also believed that Hela is actually part giantess as well, which means that she is generally depicted as being quite tall and imposing, even without her awesome headpiece, or without her magical abilities. She's also an interesting villain of the Marvel Universe, as she sometimes works against Thor, and at other times actually plays the role of ally and partner to him. Hela more recently in the comics was teaming up with Thanos, whom she was trying to win the favor of, and the two of them were also kind of like an item in the comics. Number 7. She-Hulk. She-Hulk is one of the strongest there is in the Marvel Universe. She is Jennifer Walters, cousin to Bruce Banner, who found herself able to transform into a jade giantess following an emergency blood transfusion that she received from her cousin. Jennifer specialized in criminal law and ended up being targeted as a result, shot in her driveway. Bruce managed to rig up a blood transfusion by breaking into a doctor's office. Jennifer now specializes as well in superhuman cases, often representing various heroes from the superhuman community. While she is powerful just even as a lawyer, she is also exceptionally strong as a hero in her own right. At one point she was blasted with so much gamma radiation that she was even considered to be potentially stronger than her cousin for a time. While Jen has turned gray in the past and has also become a massive green behemoth, she is now back in a more classic form, resembling her early appearances when it comes to her look as She-Hulk. Number 6. Captain Marvel. Captain Marvel is Carol Danvers. Originally, Carol Danvers worked as Chief of State for NASA. It was there that she would meet the Kree-born hero Captain Mar-Vell, who was posing as a human scientist. When she ended up being saved by Mar-Vell when the Psyche Magnetron exploded, their DNA was combined, due to Carol wishing to be like him, and she in her own right became a hero. Although we'd later learn that Carol herself was also part Kree, as her mother was actually Marielle, a Kree woman. In fact, Carol even has a Kree half-sister, L'Oreal. Carol would become Miss Marvel, a hero with super strength, durability, the ability to fly, capable of interstellar travel, and who had energy powers similar to Mar-Vell. Eventually she would take up the name of Captain Marvel in honor of her deceased mentor, the hero Mar-Vell. Number 5. Spectrum. Spectrum is probably one of the most powerful female heroes that we have over at Marvel Comics. She served as a lieutenant in the New Orleans Harbor Patrol, and while on the job came into contact with an experimental and criminal device that left her forever changed. The exposure left her with superpowers that allowed her to change form into basically any type of energy, which is pretty insane. Monica Rambeau would go on to join the Avengers and even for a short time act as the team's leader. Monica has had many different names over the years, including Captain Marvel. In fact, she took up the mantle of Captain Marvel before Carol did, but ended up surrendering it to the original Mar-Vell son so that he could use it. And then later on, of course, Carol would end up getting it. We've also known her as Photon, but currently she goes by Spectrum. Honestly, I really like the name Spectrum. I feel like it makes sense, because it's like, you know, she's got all the energies, it's a spectrum, get it? I like it. Number 4. Storm. Storm is one of the most powerful mutants around when it comes to the world of the X-Men. She is considered an Omega level mutant, which means that of those with a similar power set, she is considered the most skilled, capable, and powerful. Storm's abilities allow her to control the weather, not just creating storms, but being a master of all different elements within the spectrum of weather. Beyond that though, Storm is also a powerful person. Aurora Monroe is an amazingly skilled and deadly fighter who you probably wouldn't even want to face even if she wasn't using her powers. Aside from that, Storm is also an inspirational and motivational leader. She recently served on Captain Kate Pryde's team of Marauders, mainly because she wanted to keep a close eye on her friend and once protege Kitty, but has now moved on to become the ruler and regent of planet Araco, formerly Mars, its own primarily mutant inhabited planet, as she should be. Storm is definitely one of those people that was like born to be like a leader and a ruler. And fun fact, Storm is also a goddess as well, so basically she's got all the things. She can do it all. Number 3. Jean Grey. Jean Grey usually takes our top spot when it comes to our most powerful lists, but I think on a list like this, spot 3 isn't too bad. Typically her power gains respect amongst comic book fans because she is considered the host of the Phoenix Force. Although it should be noted that right now in the comics, Jean is not Phoenix. Maya Lopez, aka Echo, is. Jean Grey, however, is still one of the most iconic heroes to have been bonded with the Phoenix Force. She has both been a powerful force of good and a force of evil when merged with it, either being known as Phoenix or Dark Phoenix. Even without the Phoenix Force though, Jean is considered to be an Omega level mutant in regards to her telepathic skills, and an extremely capable and gifted telekinetic as well, possibly one of the most powerful psionic mutants on the planet Earth, and perhaps even within the universe or the multiverse. Number 2. Nemesis. Nemesis is a pretty cool and niche youngish character who has only made a few appearances in the comics. She was said to have been the first being in all of existence. She made the first beings out of a piece of herself, but finding them kinda evil and pretty much displeased with them, she decided to destroy them. Choosing to end her existence due to her loneliness, Nemesis ceased to be, using her own self to create both reality and the Infinity Gems. She came back into being once more when the gems were brought together again. They merged along with Loki the Trickster God and Circe of the Eternals, who both had brought the final gems together to recreate Nemesis. Number 1. Lady Death. Lady Death is one of the most powerful forces in all of Marvel. I mean, what could be more powerful than that which comes for all of us? The inevitable death. Lady Death is the physical embodiment of death, and indeed she represents that area of the cycle of life. As Death, she basically rules over all living things, which in turn will die. Lady Death in the comics is known for being the love interest of Thanos, who apparently does a whole lot of killing just to try and turn her head, hoping to win her favor. But there are also others out there who idolize Death as well, such as Deadpool, who even at one point was considered so beloved by her that Thanos cursed him so that Wade could never die, thereby preventing him from ever getting to be with Death. Number 10. Captain Marvel. In the comic book Avengers issue 197, published in 1980, Carol Danvers, who is then known as Miss Marvel, discovers that she is pregnant. However, she has no recollection of how it happened, and the baby grows at an alarming rate. Shortly after that, in Avengers issue 200, Carol gives birth to the baby, who also grows up at an alarming rate, and names himself Marcus. The Avengers seem excited about the birth, despite the bizarre circumstances of it, and Carol is made to feel like she is basically overreacting by not sharing in their enthusiasm and excitement for her. As Marcus grows, it is revealed that he is actually the son of Immortus, a ruler of Limbo, not Magic's Limbo, but a different Limbo. Immortus, by the way, is one of the alternate timeline incarnations of Kang the Conqueror. Immortus had impregnated a woman he had plucked from time, Marcus's mother, and Marcus was trapped in Limbo until he could be born on Earth. Marcus had basically brought Carol to Limbo, specifically mentioning that she actually reminded him of his mother, a little weird, and used charm and his father's subtle manipulation devices and methods to impregnate her so that he could be born on Earth. Yikes. In the end, despite the large piles of red flags, many piles of red flags everywhere, Carol decides randomly that she actually feels empathy for Marcus, not knowing whether this is coming from herself or actually from his influence over her, and her friends and colleagues, her family, the Avengers, just basically smile and wave goodbye as she rides off into the sunset with the man who she is most definitely a victim of. Her lover turned son turned sort of love once more, Marcus Immortus. Oh boy. And friends, before we move on to our next spot on this list, if you love what we do here at Top 10 Nerd, and if you love when we talk about some of the more questionable things that have been done in comics, be sure to let us know by clicking that subscribe button. Number 9. Photon. While Monica Rambeau may finally be seeing some appreciation in the comics today, this wasn't always the case. I would say she started off with a bang in the comics, but then shortly after was kind of shafted multiple times over. Needless to say, she did recently get a 5-issue mini written by Eve Ewing, no relation to Al Ewing by the way, which I am super excited to read, but I personally think Monica deserves a whole ongoing series all her own. That's how awesome and powerful she is. Number 8. Rogue. So, I'm not going to lie, I actually love Rogue's weakness. Former weakness now, I guess. Rogue was one of my favorite characters growing up, and I think what I loved about her so much was the tragedy of her story and her powers. But what's even more, I love the way that Rogue overcame them in the comics. Still, in overcoming her fears to gain full control over her powers, Rogue actually became kinda harder to write, I think. She's just honestly too powerful. This is why I feel like we don't get as many Rogue-focused stories these days in the comics. Sure, she and Gambit have their team-up series going on, but I was really hoping for a Rogue solo story during the days of Krakoa. Jonathan Hickman planned to write one, but ultimately decided against it when he agreed to hand over creative control to his X-Men team, as opposed to staying in charge of the main plot of the Krakoa era as the head of X-Desk. I still really want that Hickman Rogue story, and I'm hoping that we get it, because yeah, I feel like there's so much more we could do with Rogue in the comics. Number 7. Jean Grey. Despite being written as a powerhouse in the comics, Jean has a long history of weird choices being made for her character. And also initially she was basically just written to be a damsel in distress for a lot of the early days of the X-Men. She has constantly been killed off, in some cases to advance the story of her male heroic counterparts, whether that be motivating them to take some action or simply kind of freeing them from their romantic obligation to her. Number 6. Wasp, Janet Van Dyne. In the Ultimate Universe, Janet wasn't treated very well, but I'd also argue in the main continuity, Janet has had it, honestly, pretty rough. Initially, she was kind of like the sidekick to Ant-Man, and then it was revealed that he was not mentally stable, meaning that Janet, as his wife, had to put up with a lot, considering that Hank was later believed to be undiagnosed bipolar. Not blaming Hank for his own mental illness here, but just acknowledging that as a result, Janet had a lot that she had to live with as his partner and cope with. Eventually, the two do divorce, and then from a hero's perspective, Janet kind of slowly starts to fade away as Hank becomes less and less relevant. Number 5. Iska the Unbeaten. Iska is a super interesting character. On one hand, she's extremely powerful and can never lose. She can even potentially have her power utilized to manipulate the stakes of other competitions that she is pulled into herself. However, this also implies that there are times when she has zero control over her powers, in the sense that she cannot influence the result of an unbalanced battle. In fact, her powers will pull her to serve the side that will be victorious, regardless of whether or not she wants to, in terms of what her mind or her heart says to her. This means that Iska has been forced to turn her back on her own people, the mutants of Arakko, more than once. She's also had to fight against her own family and colleagues before as a result. Although the one thing she can control at times is how she fights in a battle, which I think is interesting. Meaning if she has the option, she can basically try to fight others involved as opposed to those that she's close to. Despite the fact that she has done her best by choosing her opponents to help mitigate how she might be used to turn the tide in a battle, she still is sometimes painted unfairly, I would say, as a villain, when really she is a strong warrior who simply sometimes has no say in terms of her allegiances thanks to her powers. I really hope we get to see more of her and get to dive more into how being forced to turn on her allies at times has truly, probably deeply affected her. Number 4. Wasp, Nadia Van Dyne. Janet even got replaced basically by her adoptive daughter, a younger version of the Wasp, Nadia Van Dyne, who was actually Hank's biological daughter from his previous marriage, who, well, he basically never knew existed. Nadia returned to the US after escaping the Russian Red Room, only to find out that Hank had actually died. She ended up bonding with Janet and ultimately taking up the Wasp mantle with her blessing, also taking her last name as well. I don't mind too much that Nadia is also now the Wasp. I just wish that Janet could also remain relevant while this was going on. In fact, despite Nadia also being a cool new character, I don't even think that she has stayed very relevant since her very recent introduction to the comic, which is unfortunate as well. Wasp is so cool, but yet we can't have any wasps that are super important lately. Number 3. Madeline Pryor. I'm sure many of you at this point know how I feel about Maddie, but for those who don't, Madeline Pryor is basically the evil clone of Jean Grey, who initially wasn't evil at all. She's also been known before as the Goblin Queen. However, the fact that Maddie was always shafted and then eventually realized that the choices made in her life were manipulated and orchestrated into happening by Mr. Sinister prompted her to basically have a mental breakdown, honestly pretty reasonable, and turn on those who she had once called her allies and friends. That's when she ends up becoming the Goblin Queen. Number 2. Scarlet Witch. M-Day has to have been one of the worst moments in mutant history. M-Day happened in 2005 in the comics as a result of Scarlet Witch striking out at mutant kind after the events of House of M, where she attempted to create a reality where many heroes were happy, but after learning of its falseness, was once again rejected by all those she had actually tried to help here. Pretty devastating, especially when, while Wanda was warping reality here, she was doing so in an effort to not only defend herself, but also make herself and all of her friends happy. In fact, I would argue her friends and teammates, the Avengers, were somewhat, and in fact, I would say just full on, complicit in what happened, since they never really reached out to Wanda to try and help her when she was struggling emotionally, prompting her to warp reality, which ultimately led to her wiping out almost all mutants during M-Day. And if you don't believe me that that is the case, I mean, there's literally an alternate reality where if Jessica Jones was there, pretty much none of this would have happened, so yeah. M-Day happened mainly because Wanda was striking out at her believed to be father at the time, Magneto, who she claimed loved mutant kind more than he did his own family. Wanda said the words "no more mutants," and with that small utterance, depowered or destroyed millions of mutants the world over, an action that would cement her as one of the greatest mutant villains in comics for years beyond, despite her long-standing history before this working as a hero. Number 1. Wasp Ultimates. Oh boy, probably the worst one, I would say. pretty bad. Janet Van Dyne's death in the Ultimate Universe has to be, honestly, one of the worst things. First of all, we don't even show her enough respect to give her an on-panel death, as she drowns during the tidal wave in Ultimatum, one of the many poor victims who perished off-panel, despite, like many others, deserving an on-panel death. But really, when we're talking about those that deserved an on-panel death, Jan is really top tier. She's really high up there, especially considering Janet was actually the leader of the Ultimates at this point. So not only are we off to a bad start here, but then she also gets eaten by the Blob for some reason. It's also weird that they decided to make the Blob do this. I know he's a bad guy, I know he's a villain, but he isn't typically known to like be a cannibal anywhere else in the Marvel multiverse, pretty much ever. The Ultimate Universe had a weird and unhealthy obsession with cannibalism initially. At least, it felt like. Number 10, Batwoman. I love Batwoman, but I feel like so many times she honestly gets shafted, especially in regard to her connection to the Bat family. Granted, Kate Kane does often like to be independent from her cousin, Bruce Wayne, but she is still a member of the family, and I don't think she really gets featured enough in the comics. While she has been featured elsewhere in the DC universe, she hasn't had her own self-titled series since 2018, and even then, that series only lasted for a year, from 2017 to 2018, having just shy of 20 issues. You might think, wow, well, that's still a good accomplishment in modern day comics, and you're right. However, when you look at, how long Batman always goes on for, we could have a little bit more Batwoman than like whatever she got, like 18, 19 issues. And friends, before we move on to our next spot on this list, if you love what we do here at Top 10 Nerd and you want more DC content from us, do I have good news for you? We have a DC Comics playlist, so go check that out. Number 9, Stargirl. Stargirl is one of those characters that I just feel we don't see enough of in the comics. Now, she has had her moments in the comics, and she did end up getting her own TV show, it is true, but considering that she did have her own TV series, I was kind of hoping we get to see more of her in the comics as a result. And in recent years, since her series started, this hasn't really been as much the case. Now, she has been on the Justice League before, sure, and she's had her own mini-series as recently as 2022, which is pretty good, but we still have never had an ongoing comic series for Stargirl. Like, she's never had a self-titled ongoing. And considering how cool Courtney Whitmore is and how much she is loved by the fans, it's honestly just kind of unfortunate. Number 8, Big Barda. Big Barda is another hero who often feels invincible in terms of her approach to heroism. Big Barda herself is a new god. She hails from Apokolips, where she was once one of Darkseid's fearsome female furies. Despite the fact that Big Barda has recently resurfaced joining up with the Birds of Prey, which honestly I think is a great fit for her, she hasn't been regularly featured prior to this for some time. And I feel like she is a character who deserves more hype in the comics. Heck, even in the movies. Where is our Big Barda solo film, huh? I feel like actually James Gunn would probably do a really good job of putting that together. The Big Barda solo film. Oh, I would watch that. I would be in that. I don't know if I'm jacked enough to be Big Barda, but I'd get jacked to be Big Barda. She's so cool. Number 7, Naomi. Naomi is probably one of the most powerful of the newer heroes that we've seen. But do most people even know who she is? Probably not. Amber, do you know who she is, Naomi? Nope, see, there you go. Despite her powers being comparable, and I would argue even stronger than characters like Superman, she isn't often heavily featured in the comics. Unlike Superman, whose weakness is actually magic, Naomi bolsters magic around her. Haha! So magic does not have the same negative effect on her, but instead works almost in the exact opposite way. Her powers allow her to generate energy, which she can then use to boost her powers or any magic or magical beings around her. I'm still waiting for an epic Zatanna and Naomi team up to happen in the comics, and yes, I know Naomi had her own TV series, but she also only got one season of that. And while I've heard some great things about it, overall it seems like the series was met with a mixed reception between audience and critics. So, although honestly, I gotta watch it. I should watch the Naomi series. Bet I'd probably enjoy at least some of it. I mean, I'm surprised I'm enjoying Gotham Knights as much as I am, even though that show is an experience. Number 6, Killer Frost. Caitlin Snow is truly a character that has sat on the periphery of the DC mainstream for years and years. Yet despite being super cool, pun intended, and interesting in regards to her backstory, whether we're focusing on Caitlin honestly or even her predecessor, Louise Lincoln, but especially Caitlin, she barely gets featured in the comics, appearing less than 100 times in the last 10 years. If we're talking about Caitlin Snow, that is. And that's even with a version of Caitlin's character being adapted for the CW Arrowverse television series The Flash, appearing as one of the key members of the Flash's support team there. Number 5, Batgirl. One of the weirdest things with DC is how sometimes they just completely leave their stories open to being canon or not, depending on how fans receive those stories. And one of the weirdest incidents of this happening was actually with The Killing Joke. Now, The Killing Joke was written by Alan Moore and was never intended by him to be necessarily a part of the main continuity. And as far as I know, it still isn't even really fully canon, except for one part of that story, the successful attack on Barbara Gordon by the Joker, which left her both traumatized and paralyzed from the waist down. Why this was the only thing we chose to keep from this story, I don't know. But the whole idea of it just feels super weird to me, especially when you consider how brutal and graphic this attack was against Barbara. And Barbara gets no opportunity to defend herself, having been surprised by the Joker's visit while visiting her dad in her civilian form. That being said, she's still Barbara Gordon, so you still would think, you know, maybe she'd do something, but no. This element of the story would change Barbara's life forever, and although I do like Babs as Oracle, it feels like she was robbed of some agency here. In fact, it feels like she was robbed of a lot of agency here, especially when you consider the story was never really intended to be incorporated into the canon. Barbara Gordon has since managed to heal and return to her role as Batgirl while still keeping all the skills she was shown to have as the brilliant hacker and computer whiz Oracle. But I still feel like the fact that she suffered so severely from what was intended to be a story that existed outside of canon is brutal. Number 4, Blackfire. You know you deserve better when I've barely talked about you as a character on the channel when I've been working here for almost 5 years. Yikes. Poor Blackfire. I'm sorry, Blackfire. I'm sorry for my part in this. I feel like the thing I'd personally love to see more of from a character like Blackfire is perspective in the comics. Blackfire is the evil sister of Starfire. And I mean, she is really evil. And while she might be one of the best of the worst around, I would say she does ultimately lack some depth. Sure, she is really, really bad, but I've always found her to be more surface level in terms of her motivation behind why she does what she does. In the New Earth continuity, it's the lack of respect and love from her people and her jealousy for her young sister, Coriander, Starfire, who got all that love instead, that basically drives her to do such terrible things. In the Prime Earth continuity, this is less focused on, but still plays a role. And even in the New Earth continuity, I'd like to see more of this in terms of the nuances of Commander's character. I understand her being jealous, I get that, but how else does this affect the way the Blackfire sees not just like her sister, but like the whole world? How else does she justify such terrible actions? Is there any way to get across to her and potentially reach her on an emotional level? I want to feel for Commander, and I often feel she's robbed of any kind of sympathetic perspective, even with everything she went through as a child. I mean, like, I do feel bad for her in terms of like what happened to her, but I just feel like we never really get to connect with her, you know? And I think I'd like to do that more. Is that weird? People are gonna be like, why do you want to connect with this super evil character? Look, I love evil characters, and I think sometimes they have reasons. Number 3, Variant. Talk about women who have been shafted in the comics. How about any of these cyber women that we have seen who have acted as female counterparts to Cyborg? Among them is Variant. Variant only made a handful of appearances before she was tragically just like kind of written out, but I do think her character had promise, and I've always felt it would be cool for Cyborg to have someone to talk to who really gets what it's like to live as he does and share his perspective. Scarlet Taylor is very similar to Cyborg in that regard, being a member of the CIA who almost lost her life on a mission and was saved by being transformed into a cyborg like Cyborg himself was. Number 2, Vixen. Vixen is a supermodel turned businesswoman and in the current continuity, a supermodel slash fashion designer turned primetime show host and animal activist. Well, it's more than likely that Vixen has been an animal activist ever since she possessed the superpower to take various animal shapes. Armed with the Tantu Totem, she can transform into various different animals and harness their own unique abilities and powers. And even without the totem, she currently still can call on at least some of its power, giving herself like animal characteristics basically. Still, despite having this insane amount of power at her fingertips and the fact that she has a pretty cool backstory is stunning, and is a badass, we don't see Vixen featured that often in the comics. When we talk about Halle Berry and DC, that Catwoman movie, look, that wasn't great, but I feel like Vixen would have been an amazing character to see Barry in the role of. Number 1, Circe. While Hecate and Hera are both goddesses, at one point Circe is even more powerful than the both of them, after she takes within herself all of Hecate's power, which allows her to tap into the source of magic. Even without being able to tap into the source of magic, Cersei is known for being a fearsome and powerful witch who can easily defeat many of those who would stand against her. And yet despite this, we haven't really seen Cersei focused on as a villain in what honestly feels to me like forever. I know it hasn't been that long, but it feels like forever. In Justice League Dark by James Tynion IV, we even get a great look into Cersei's tragic backstory that shows us why Cersei is as power-hungry and ruthless as she is. She didn't necessarily have the easiest life, guys. It comes from a place of self-preservation because she was so cruelly mistreated by the world, and yet despite building up her character, it still often feels like she falls by the wayside at DC Comics. She's such a cool character. She should have her own series, honestly.